Everyone, this is David Chotka at Spirit Equip Ministries. I just want to tell you about things that I wish I had known when I started in the ministry. In the last segment that we looked at, we talked about the necessity of understanding clarity around how decisions are made and how you can then harness that and put it to work. Now, sometimes you'll come to a church where there's been trouble. Maybe there's been a church split, maybe there's been financial trouble. Perhaps the leader core is all exhausted. Maybe they're too old. Perhaps there was some event in the past that wounded them, or whatever the issue happens to be. Everybody knows that change is needed. They don't know how to do it, and they've asked you to come in to be a change agent. If that's the case, and you are clear on your governance model, then you can proceed by taking time to listen. Now, in the last session, I gave you a model, a paradigm, to understand how the leaders of the past can work with you. Here's what I would do with that group of people now that you have got your leader core in place. All of them know the history of the church. You're now praying together through a prayer course and then probably once a month. I would say to them, let us pray about what it is that you think we could reasonably achieve. What do we need to keep in place that's what's called the meat and potatoes of ministry? In other words, who do I need to visit because they're in the hospital? What do I need to preach on in order to address the needs of the congregation, et cetera, et cetera? You do the ordinary things that every pastor who's worth his or her salt does. Then you ask the leader core whom you're praying with, if God wanted us to make one or two changes that would move our church toward a better future, what would those one or two things be? I'm going to give you a hint about one or two. I'll tell you why. Most churches say they want change. And then when you bring change, most churches say we don't want change. It's kind of like losing weight. If you decide you want to lose weight, you'll start your diet until you see the ice cream that's your favorite as you walk by in the grocery store and you buy the ice cream. It's not right. What you have to do is to make the decision that in your first year or two in the assembly that you're serving, after the governance model is clear, what is the principal new thing that you want to introduce in that church, and introduce one, and at the outside two? Most churches will comfortably change about 5% of their culture in any given year. If you try to change more than that, you're going to have trouble when it comes to the budget next year, because people who are bucking the change aren't going to be given to the things that you're trying to do. If, on the other hand, you are sustaining the things that have brought life to the assembly in the past, and you're innovating around one and the outside two areas, you have actually succeeded in beginning to morph the culture of the congregation you're in toward a better preferred future condition. The hint is just this. Once you have made a 5% change and it's lasted for a year, you consolidate that as the culture that already is. You don't revert to just yesterday's practices. You revert to yesterday's practices plus the 5% that you have changed over the year. Then you gather the same group of leaders together with the new ones who have come in. You repeat the exercise about the 3 questions that I named in the previous video. You find out who the new leaders are. You bring them into your prayer meeting and ask them once again, is there one thing that we need to do that would cause the Lord's delight, that would change our church just a little bit so that we could move forward into a preferred future condition? Then you are building on the 5% that you did the year before and adding another 5. But because the 5% is already there, in 2 years, you've moved your church by about 12%. If you keep making one productive change incrementally, one small step at a time, you consolidate the culture of your assembly around the things that you know now please the Lord in a new kind of a way. You've begun to discover new rising leaders, and you're continuing to teach the spiritual disciplines to bring those leaders into your leader core. Within 5 years, you will have a completely different kind of culture based upon you as spiritual leader investing in spiritual leaders who are anchor workers inside the framework of your church, and it will move you into a preferred future condition. This is Reverend Dr. David Chotka speaking to you at Spirit Equip. I'd be delighted if you would take a look at our website, www.spiritequip.com, for more resources to help you grow your church.